Moving on to our one and only topic, a discussion and possible action item, the superintendent's fiscal year 27 proposed operating budget.
All right, good evening, everyone. And if Mr. Mansfield wouldn't mind putting up our slides. Okay, next slide. So tonight, I want to frame our budget discussion around a simple but important idea. Decisions today impact tomorrow. I say this because every choice that we make and our predecessors have made in the budget cycles carry implications that extend well beyond the year. Our responsibility is not only to balance a budget for the coming fiscal year, but to understand how those decisions shape the long-term stability, growth, and effectiveness of our district. Budgets in school systems are not isolated one-year events. Academic growth, staffing models, program development, and infrastructure stability are built over time, often over many, many years. When we make those short-term adjustments, we must recognize that the impact is rarely short-term. I'm going to come back to that important idea in just a bit. Next slide. At the conclusion of your discussion, the Board of Education's discussion on February 9th, the board asked that the administration to provide 3 scenarios for their consideration and discussion relative to the fiscal year 27 budget. Those scenarios are what you see on this slide. Consider and adopt the superintendent's proposed budget as is, reduce the proposed budget by $750,000, and finally reduce the proposed budget by $500,000. Next slide. So here's your first scenario, support and adopt the superintendent's budget as is. It protects what's working while making those strategic investments that we've talked about. It continues the thoughtful multi-year plan rather than reacting to a single year or moment, ensuring the stability, consistency, and the forward momentum of the district. Scenario 2, next slide. Here, I don't think that there's anything that will surprise you, but in this particular scenario, which is scenario 2, it reduces the budget by $750,000. What you are going to notice is many of the options that we shared on February 9th, and you can see those within the FTE. With respect to that FTE, I just want to make sure you notice or that I bring to your attention a couple of things. In this slide, it's a little bit different than what we presented on the 9th in that when you're looking at the FTE here, you're going to notice that the costs are slightly higher because they include, in this particular case, the estimated health insurance and associated payroll taxes. At one point, you'll also notice that on the, we're taking some risks in this scenario. One is the special education transportation, the second one is ECR, and the third is the heating oil. I want to draw your attention to the ECR in particular, because if you remember, there was a high, medium, and low risk. That number doesn't actually match any of those risks, and the reason it doesn't is because we had to make the number work within $750,000, and so we had to decide where we would take quote unquote which risk and which one we would take less than. So really that number was to work within the $750,000 once we put the benefits in those associated FTE. With respect to the associated FTE, what you're also going to notice is missing is the 0.4 department chair in special education for the high school. And you remember that's a teaching position split. Teaching position. And the reason that that was not prioritized on this list is, quite frankly, the caseloads are just not manageable at RHS. And we've shown you that data in one of the special education reports earlier in the year. You'll see that the facility projects match exactly what we shared on the 9th, and the pay to participate reduction, those would be quote unquote paused, and that is the $750,000 reduction. The facility projects matches exactly what's in the February 9th presentation, refinishing the Surham's gym floor, refinishing the stage floor at Branchville and ERMS, reduction in district-wide painting, and the reduction in the installation of bottle fill waters across the district. Next slide. In this scenario, you asked us to look at a reduction of $500,000. So it's not much different, again, from what you saw in the last slide. from February 9th. And what we did here is also to try to get the numbers to line up, but we took the pay to participate, which, as you know, was something that we felt was important to do over time. This would pause it, but it wouldn't, the impact wouldn't be as great. So you're seeing that $68,000 reduction go to half. You're seeing the world language teacher here, the facility projects are here, and again, that estimate in ECR is to make the number work to $500,000 to have an even number there. Why did we pick the world language teacher? At the end of the day, that would be a pause in a program that we've already started, not necessarily one we wanted to do. And I don't think we really want to do any of these naturally, but if we had to make a decision, we ultimately felt that that was the decision that would be least impactful at this moment in time. Last slide. So as I shared earlier, my first slide is that I would come back to this important idea. We recognize the fiscal restraints that the Board of Education is facing, and we know that the decisions before you tonight and in the past few evenings are not easy. I also want to recognize that when I present the budget, I'm presenting it within a reality. At the same time, we have a responsibility to share the full picture. And by doing that, I feel like it is important to share that deferring programs or pausing them, right, doesn't necessarily eliminate them unless that is something that the Board of Education ultimately wants to do. So when we pause student programs, we ultimately interrupt multi-year initiatives, right? The world language is a good example of that, something that we shared with you over 3 years. We talked about proficiency. We've come back to the board and explained what that would look like. It also reduces what we've already previously communicated as our commitments, right? And that world language is a good example of that, and pay to participate is another. When we pause or interrupt, let's say, those initiatives, we also impact or disrupt, let's say, the momentum, right? This is where we're going. This is what we've told people we're going to do. Planning can become unstable in those cases, and rebuilding later often requires greater financial and structural investment. So we know that the savings are immediate, but not necessarily in the long term. And I think that there's some real examples of that, and that really comes with the deferred maintenance and capital improvements. Maintenance delayed is rarely avoided, right? You have your facilities, that's not going to change. We're going to have to maintain them, whether or not we maintain them now or we maintain them later. Costs, we know, increase, and smaller issues, just like in our home, can potentially become larger ones. Growth and obligations in a school system are incremental. We know that with our contractual obligations, and they continue no matter what, whether we fund them now or we fund them later, they have to be funded. So truth is, as we move forward, not different really, again, as our predecessors, the past boards, the past superintendents, they had to make some decisions. The board and the town, and I see members of our town boards here, and I thank you for coming, we will need to consider, again, I'm sharing the current reality, but we will need to consider how sustainable our current model and structures are in future budgets, right? So if we're saying pause here, pause here, pause here, what is that telling us for future years, right? Are we saying we have to go back in to the budget that we already have, right? That quote unquote rollover, for lack of a better word, if we can't sustain growth? Or are we changing what those priorities or those commitments have already been, that we've already established? Because the reality is, if we agree that budget years increased at this level can't be maintained or sustained, then 1 year reductions are just going to cause, right, that multi-year ripple effect if we don't navigate that. This board, like me, are facing past decisions, whether they potentially were good decisions in that moment or not. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. One was, again, this was not the board there, nor was it the superintendent, but they made a financial decision at one point to reduce teams at the middle school. When they did that, they absolutely saved money. For sure, right? You removed a number of teachers from one team and then subsequently another. And now we're all facing the enrollment challenges at CERMS. And that's now a bigger discussion. How are we handling that? What happens when we have bubble years? Do we go back to ERMS? What does that look like? That's one that was a positive then, and now it's impacting us, right? Similarly, we've made other decisions where, for example, we've purchased vans for potentially 5. You're noticing that we're looking to take some risk on one of those vans. You don't see that budget savings anymore, right? In fact, most of you, I think with the exception of perhaps Ms. Malhotra, and maybe the recent van, but weren't on the board when we made the decision to purchase those vans. Those vans have probably saved us $300,000, $400,000 a year. No one is looking at that savings anymore, and eventually we're gonna have to purchase new vans, and all that's gonna become a reality, right? Because we have no choice. But really, the spirit of what I'm saying is that we can't only solve for this year. So if we're saying that this budget is not sustainable, then in whatever that means for us, we have to have a real commitment to have a conversation, because the budgets are not necessarily going to get better, for example, by deferring what we know has to be looked at, right? Maintenance projects are there. We don't want gloomy buildings. We want water bottles. We want floors resurfaced. You know, we really have to take a very deep look. And again, I recognize the difficulty that this board has, and the town boards. This is not a one-way street, nor is it, it's not easy for us. And what I can say, and I see many of our administrators are here and our teachers, when we create a budget to share with all of you, we're not creating a budget like we want. That's not what we share with you. It's absolutely what we need. And again, what are the commitments that the boards that have sat at these tables have said, yeah, these are the things that we feel are important, and let's plan for that. And yet, many board meetings have you been sitting here discussing and really looking at, I could say, truly looking at every dollar that we've spent here. And I think that everyone that's watching this meeting should be proud of this Board of Education for doing that work and that heavy lift. But there's realities that at some point we're going to have to face. We're getting a master plan soon enough. We have 9 facilities. Some tough decisions are going to need to be made. And I hope that when those decisions are made, we could do that in partnership and really rally around what needs to happen for this community to continue to grow it and not just stay status quo. So on that note, thank you for your partnership, and I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Malhotra.
Thank you, Dr. De Silva. Okay, before we move to the part of adopting the budget, I just wanted to take a moment to say a few important words. First, I want to thank Dr. De Silva, your team, your staff members, your administrators. Thank you so much for all your hard work in this. The turnaround time for over the last couple of months, it seems longer at this point, but for the questions that the board has asked, the community asked, has been exceptional, and that matters, and we do thank you for that. It has been a slightly long, tough budget season, including the wee blizzard that made us change the meeting today. I think we have dug deep because that is a responsibility as a Board of Education, and we've done so sometimes in the context of a guidance number or a percentage increase that is provided by the Board of Finance. And I know that has been featured multiple times in our conversations when we talked about the budget. So I want to highlight that, but I also acknowledge the partnership and the role of the Board of Finance. I also want to highlight that each board has a role to play. The Board of Finance has a role, the Board of Select Persons has a role, and the Board of Education has a role. I think without doubt, one of our biggest, or the overarching goal, is to do the best for all students, 100%. Also, I also acknowledge, and I think the board knows, that it cannot be ignored that the Board of Education budget represents the largest portion of the town's overall budget. That's a reality. That means it places a dual responsibility on this board. We must be fiscally responsible, we must be strong fiduciaries of public funds, and we also must ensure that the Richfield Public Schools continue to grow, to serve students well, and to prepare them for the future. And so these are huge responsibilities, and I believe that has guided all the conversations that we've had at this table. I also want to acknowledge how difficult some of these conversations around reductions have been. When we talk about some line items, sometimes we're talking about people. Those are incredibly hard, not only for somebody to listen, but for the board to have. I want to say that this board deeply values every member of the Richfield Public Schools community, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, administrators, our staff, our custodians, our bus drivers, every single person. We would not be the district we are without the dedication, the professionalism, and their partnership. So I just want to say these are not abstract decisions, and we never, as a Board of Education, treat them as such. It is also the responsibility of the Board of Education, this budget. It is one of our most, if not arguably the hardest duties that we carry as a Board of Education. So we need to put a budget that is education first and fiscally sound, and something the broader community can stand behind. I just want to remind, once this budget is adopted, it becomes the Board of Education's budget. I want the other boards and this community to understand that we, as a Board of Education, have done this work. We have asked the questions. We have asked a number of questions. We have reviewed these numbers. We've had the discussions. And once this budget is adopted, I hope this budget is supported by the Board of Finance, the Board of Select People, and the community at large. Because at the end of the day, we're doing this for students. We are educating and shaping nearly 4,500 young people. We're helping them become thoughtful, capable young adults. That responsibility is never far from each and every member of this Board of Education. And to my fellow board members, thank you. There have been a lot of long meetings. There have been very challenging discussions. We come to this work from different perspectives, different values, and priorities, but I know we're all rooted in our commitment to kids and education, so thank you for your work in that. Reaching consensus while balancing these values is hard work, and I appreciate the time, care, and good faith each of you have brought to this process. Okay, so now we're going to move on. I'm just going to reiterate what Dr. De Silva said. The board asked the superintendent to bring forward multiple budget scenarios. What is before us tonight are proposals for decision-making, and I want the board to keep that in mind. As a board, I want to remind everybody, we retain full authority to accept a proposal as presented. We can accept it with modifications. We can reduce individual components. We can combine elements across scenarios, or we can reject all options and propose an alternative solution. So I just want to remind us that we are here to make a decision. We have to vote on the budget. The job of the administration is here done. They've fulfilled all the questions we've asked. Of course, you can ask questions. Keeping that in mind, I think I'm just going to go simply so that we don't go about this. Is there a motion to adopt the budget as is proposed by Dr. De Silva? Sorry, Ms. Moore, can you read that so that we can start with that motion?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
I move that the Board of Education adopt the superintendent's 2026-2027 Ridgefield Public Schools operating budget totaling $125,324,800, a 4.62% increase over the current budget.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Do we have a second? Ms. Graff? No.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussions about that, or would we like to move to the vote? Yes, Ms. Moore. Mike?
Okay. I would just like to share some thoughts about this motion, this budget. I first want to thank Dr. De Silva and her team for their hard work and their commitment to this budget and to our students. I also want to take a moment to thank the teachers who continue to work tirelessly to support our students. And you really are the unsung heroes, and we thank you. And I want to thank you, Ms. Malhotra, for your leadership throughout this entire process. This has been a difficult budget season, and often difficult discussions have been had, and we've definitely had them. I don't think we've left any stones unturned. I'm going to speak personally. When it comes to supporting the budget as is, I find myself struggling. I know the Board of Finance gave us guidelines in the fall. Those guidelines reflect what they believe to be the financial appetite in the town. They too receive emails, just like we receive emails, and about thoughts, concerns, and worries about increasing taxes. We represent the entire community. I think we have a responsibility to attempt to meet the Board of Finance in some way. I'm in favor of student growth. I'm in favor of growth. I'm in favor of increasing. There are options there that I think we should discuss. They're all an increase to the current budget. I just want to make a general statement as far as I firmly believe that we should pause World Language Year 3 right now until we know where those minutes are coming from the academic blocks of the elementary school day. I would love to actually get input, direct feedback from teachers about how they feel Before committing to another initiative, another year in the classroom, I want to see where those minutes come from. And that, I'm struggling with supporting this budget with that in it. So again, I just wanted to express my feelings. We have a responsibility to our students first and foremost. I take that incredibly seriously. I've dedicated my life to supporting kids. But I also see this as we have a fiscal responsibility to the town and the community. We have many people in this town who are on fixed income. And I think we need to work together to collaborate more with the Board of Finance on this to meet our students' needs. So thank you. Those are my thoughts.
Any other discussion on, there's a motion, there's a second.
I have a few thoughts.
Yes.
First, I just want to say thank you for all the information that you put together. I spent the last 3 weeks studying it, meeting with people, to get a better understanding and perspective of what it is we're doing here in the district. I've learned a great deal. I have an understanding that I didn't have before. When I spoke to Jill last week, I did tell her that I've seen budgets put together in the private sector that didn't have this much detail and wasn't as comprehensive. So it helped me a great deal. I also appreciate the help that I got from the board members, getting some perspective, getting some history, kind of helped me reach some decisions that I'm coming to tonight, as well as some of the community. I read all of the questions. I read all of the comments. They gave me some good insight that I didn't have before. And I also met with some of the community members at all. So I tried to do the best I could to get prepared over the last 3 weeks. With that, a couple observations. When I was going through the budget details, I noticed 53% of the FTEs are in the classroom in front of students teaching. It appears low to me that we have almost 50% of the FTEs in the school that are not in the classroom teaching. That sounds high. I would think that it would be a higher ratio. When I look at the student to teacher ratio, we have one classroom teacher for every 10.6 students. And I think that should be higher. When I look at the FTE growth, year to year, budget to budget. We're looking at FTEs growing at 6. If we look at the current FTEs on board, at least what was in the budget book, it grows to 10. But the FTEs in the classroom are declining 1.5. The ratios just don't seem to, at the macro level, the ratios just don't seem to make sense to me. And I know the ratio is not representative of the class size, because I've seen the class sizes. I think part of it is, the footprint that we have. Obviously, we have state, we have federal mandates. The way the classes are, both grade level and the way they're distributed, among the various schools, I know that all comes into play. But I just think there needs to be a different solution when we talk about, what's the strategic plan going forward. My experience has been successful budgets, they always link to a strategic plan. And you've pointed that out as well. How does this link to the 5-year plan we have, the 10-year plan that we have? And it's what I really need to, wrap my head around to say, okay, here's why this makes sense. I know we have a master plan that's being worked on. I did read your memo, which was about a year ago, that talked about, what are we doing building-wise, which I think is the right thing to do. But when I think about a strategic plan, I'm also thinking about what are we doing? Are we doing anything with shared services? Are there any opportunities there? Not only with shared services among the schools, but even among the town. With some of the other silos that we have, is there something that we could do there? Are we doing anything? Is there any more that we could do with contracted services? Universities, they're supplementing some of their their in-person teaching. They're doing modular online content from top instructors around the world. There seems to be a shift in some of the universities, towards flexible, scalable instructional ecosystems. This is nothing like what happened in COVID-19, but is that something that we could do at, maybe at the high school level? My sense is what we're doing here is we're kind of tweaking around the edges. And I don't mean that the things that we're talking about aren't important. We're talking about, maybe, a half a FTE here, or a shift here. And there are important things that are not even considered in the budget. Some of the maintenance things that you pointed out, just earlier. I listened to some of the comments, that the town has made. I did not even focus on or really have an understanding of what visual arts was. But when I started to hear the comments about it, I started researching it. And I say to myself, why wouldn't we include that? It just makes sense when you think about the impact it has at the elementary level. And then on the other hand, I speak to people who they just can't afford an increase in their taxes. And this is kind of what I'm struggling with when I say, okay, what's the right balance here? And your point, looking, years out, what are the implications? I did that, and I just looked at the future value calculation of what would a 4.62% increase be. So if we were to approve the 4.62% today, what would that look like if we did the same thing 5 years from now, or 5 years thereafter? We would be talking about a $157 million budget, an increase of almost $32 million. In 10 years, that would be $197 million, an increase of almost $72 million. 10 years may sound like, pretty far off, but those that are just entering the elementary school, that's what we're going to be talking about when they're in high school. In 15 years, it's $247 million. It's an increase of $121 million. That's going to be when my granddaughter's in the high school. And if you want to go out 20 years, it's $309 million. That's what we're talking about if we approve 4.62% today and each year thereafter. And we're not, at least my understanding, is we're not making any real fundamental changes. Again, we're kind of tweaking around the edges. I think, I'm convinced, we really need to develop that strategic plan. We really need to understand what the implications are. I think it's going to require some tough decisions, whether it be a footprint, doing things around the curriculum, and other things like contracted services, shared services. But the path I think we're on is not sustainable. You could run your own future value calculations. You could do different scenarios. But what I said is not hypothetical, it's just math. So we just need to get our heads wrapped around those numbers. I was kind of struggling with, okay, what is a good idea to come up with tonight? I was really thinking about, what options do we have? And I realized I'm coming up with the best bad idea. I don't have a good idea. Those are my thoughts as I'm approaching the budget. I do have a suggestion, and I'll make the motion, when the time is appropriate, but it's something different than what we just saw tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we're just discussing the budget as is. Is there any other debate on this, or questions on this, or comments? Yes, Ms. Marino?
I would like to thank you, Dr. De Silva, for all your hard work and your cabinet, because I know that there was a ton of work behind the scenes that went into this. So I do wholly appreciate it. And I'm glad you spoke first, because he's so eloquent when he says. But I agree. I feel like nitpicking at the 4.62% and crossing off line items and going through that is not an exercise that we really want to do. None of us on the board really want to do that. That's not what we want to do. But when we are given a number of 2.5% to 3% to increase, and we go up to 4.63 or 4.62%, that is what was left for us. And then when I see your presentation that you worked so hard at, it doesn't really even stab at the percentage, coming down. So I do agree that we need to look elsewhere because we want these things that you proposed at our school. We do. But how do we get all those things and still keep our percentages lower? And that's the conversation that I think we really have to have, because none of us, I don't think any one of us, probably are happy with anything that you put up there today. I mean, I'm not. I can't speak for everybody else, but I'm not. And that exercise was hard at our last meeting to say, oh, cut it 500,000, cut it 750,000, because you really didn't know where it was going to get you to. I just wanted to say that, that I think that there does need to be some conversation about what our plan is for the future so we can adopt some of these things. And the other thing is, I do just want to say and err on the side of caution of using words like pause or interrupt. The thing that we're pausing might be world language, but some of these things we don't have yet. You know what I mean? So it's not really a pause. It might not be there next year.
Yeah,
We don't, and that's just the sad reality. And sometimes we create these budgets and they're eye candy for the public. They're like, oh, these are all the things that we could get. But realistically, if any of you sat there and threw these numbers in with your mill rate into ChatGPT, I would actually have to move out of the town if my taxes went up that much, because I believe that the school budget, am I right, about 75%?
I would have to, I wouldn't want to be
Usually
quoted on
they
that.
are 68%. It would drive taxes up a lot. A lot, and really it would be unaffordable for some people who are at a $615,000 house range to probably afford to stay in town. So I just had to throw that out there, but I appreciate all your work, and I appreciate, what you did. So, thank you.
Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah. and-
Echo a lot of the statements that were made as far as how much work has been put in. I honestly have a lot of gratitude for all the work from everybody on the administration, the board. I just don't want to be too repetitive and redundant. Been wrestling with this a lot over the last, since our last meeting. And obviously, everybody at this table wants to invest deeply and strategically in education. Otherwise, why else are we all here? But I think we have to continue to emphasize the obvious distinction between investing more and investing smart. We can do both. We are doing both. But I think that we have to really, really hold ourselves hard to owing it to the town year over year to prove that disciplined spend. And when there's an ask for an increase, to be very confident that, in this case, what we call rollover or the additional is as close to the best possible use of whether it's 119 million or 120 something million, whatever we ultimately vote for. The things that have been on my mind, I think number one, it's been said before, the Board of Finance did give us a target. We're exceeding that target by some amount to be determined. And if we are exceeding that, it needs to be for good reason. Are we either providing some asymmetric upside that the dollar spent give us such an outsized return on some area that it is worthwhile to do it now, and there's an urgency to it, or does it simply cost us less to do that now? And Dr. DeSilva, you addressed a number of those areas where the investment now has the potential to save us money down the road. The other thing that's been on my mind is, and maybe I did not have enough of express my appreciation for this enough historically, is the sensitivity to tax burden on folks in the town. The entire board has gotten reports around kind of affordability respective and relative to the rest of the DIRG. And I think one of the things that we have to bear in mind is that we do not get ourselves in a position with what to me feels like changing socioeconomics of the town, trying to chase towns and to keep ourselves on pace with other towns that just very, very simply are in a different socioeconomic class. And I'm not saying that Ridgefield is more. I know this town it's not as affordable for certain people as it is others. I'm saying relative to the rest of the Derg, we have to think about what does make this town special and what makes this town more approachable than some of those other towns and why people move here. And I want to make sure we all have an acute appreciation for that in terms of our responsibility. Yes, students absolutely are top of mind for us, but we do have a responsibility to our partners in the other boards and to the town. So where I get stuck is on, again, I do not have at this point 100% confidence that 100% of the proposed budget is the absolute best use of some of those funds. And I think that there's a couple of line items where there's still some questions around the return, still questions around strategy, and that just gave me enough of a moment of pause that I wanted to make sure I expressed that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? So if I'm hearing concern, Mr. Marteri, you said you had an idea. You can add to amend this motion. Do you have a number in mind you would like to add? If you're comfortable.
I do. I would like to add another option,
Sure.
if I could digress a minute.
Okay.
I know the members of the board do, but I kind of feel like an obligation to those listening or will be listening here just to tell you just a minute a little bit about myself. This would be the 36th year that I'll be living in Ridgefield. Both of my children went through the K through 12 program here in the public school system. When my daughter decided to, have a baby, they moved back to Ridgefield here to raise their family. Both her and her husband went through the K through 12 program here in school. So I will have a grandchild who will be going into the Ridgefield public school system, and God willing, there'll be more. And I want the best possible experience for her when she does go into the Ridgefield public school system. But I want that experience not only to be when she enters, but when she graduates from the high school as well. I'm also one of those retirees who are on a fixed income. I only mention that because this is the lens that I'm thinking through, as well as, all of the comments that I've heard from the people in town. So with that, my recommendation, my motion is to put on the table not to increase the spending more than 2%. 2% spending from where we are now, dollar-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be $2,395,920 to be exact, which would bring it to $122,191, $192.
Thank you. Jill, yes.
Ms. Merholter, I think you need to vote on the motion that is on the floor before you can make an amendment.
Based on my understanding of Robert's Rules and Parliamentary
we can
Procedure, we can amend.
We can
So
amend
if-
the
if
correct motion.
Mr. Martieri would like to make a motion to amend
And then he
the
needs a
current motion.
second. And you need a second. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
I would like to make a motion to amend.
thank you. Do we have somebody who will second Mr. Martiri's motion to amend?
Point of clarification. So if we amend the original motion, what does that mean? Do we end up having two different motions, or we just
No,
don't
first,
have the original motion?
We can have the original.
Okay.
It's so confusing.
Yeah, sorry.
I know. We can do it two ways. We can actually vote on the original motion because there was a second and we have had the discussion. Or if that does not carry, then we can vote to,
you'd add.
Amend.
right?
We can add.
You would add a motion because
we would
already
add an
have.
emotion, yes. Right? Like we just
Yeah,
looked it
I
up.
think we have two options. We can make a motion to amend,
Mm-hmm.
and if that passes, that motion would then supersede the original motion
That's true.
to maintain the proposed amount. If it fails, then the original
Motion
motion would
carries,
be,
yeah.
it doesn't carry.
Sorry, it stays.
It would allow us to be
Yes.
voted on.
Yes, yes. And so for a motion to be amended, we need a majority vote, of course.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
So if he says 2%, right? That's what we're voting on is 2%?
No,
Or we're just
no, first,
voting
We're just voting on the,
on
so
amending? Got it.
there's a motion to amend. We need a second to that. Ms. Rice, sorry, I just saw your hand. Yes. Thank you.
That's okay. I just wanted to comment on the original motion.
Sure.
So I'm trying to be really cognizant of everything everyone's saying about tax burden, and I hear it. And, in other roles, at times in other roles in this community, I've argued on that side of remembering that we don't have the corporate tax base that some communities have, and so on and so forth. I want to offer a couple of things. I want to offer that we have heard via email overwhelmingly support for this budget in numbers. So that's one point of data, I think, that we shouldn't forget about. And then the other thing I'd like to say is that I do believe, what's wonderful about this board is we have so many people with different backgrounds and skill sets and lenses. And I think I'd just like to share that my lens is that when this team took over, or when Dr. De Silva came in, my oldest was in 3rd grade. He's now in 9th grade. And, I've worn lots of hats in the district. People have heard me say that before. I've subbed, I've been a PTA parent, all of these, PTA leader and all of these things. My observation of the work that this team does around budgets, and I've been paying very close attention since 2020. My observation is that this team only asks for things that are needed. And I will put world language as a slight aside there, because I do have some questions about the numbers or the time as well, and I would love to understand that more. So that's sort of the one thing that I'm still a little bit not 100% on as well, or just have some more questions about, I guess. But other than that, I can tell you that my children's educational lives have changed only for the better since this team took over as a result of the investments that they've made. And so that's the tension for me around this, is I want to be fiscally responsible. I want to be sensitive to those things. I really do. But I have lived these changes that the investments that this team has asked for. I've lived them. I've seen them in my children. I've seen them in other people's children when I've been in the buildings. And it's hard for me to say, we need to slash this budget. I just think that we will fundamentally lose the character of this district. We will become something else. And I don't want to become something else. And I think most people that we've heard from don't want to become something else. And, there's certainly, I think, could be an area in between perhaps the full 4.62 and becoming something else, which is what 2% or even the numbers given by Board of Finance means, in my opinion. And so I just wanted to share that, I know I'm seen to vocally support a lot of what the team does. It's because I've lived it. I've seen it from many sides. And, I just don't think that this budget is asking for anything or a very, very tiny discretionary bit that's not absolutely needed. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Moore?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify something that Ms. Rice just said about overwhelming emails that we've received, just because as the secretary, I keep track of the emails. And I think I caution you to use that word because we have about 25,000 residents, and I keep track, and we've maybe 20 emails, 20 to 30 emails. So I think we need to.
Sorry, Ms. Moore. I meant you're right. Overwhelming was not the right word.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that what I meant was the ratio of support versus the opposite seemed quite large to me, but overwhelming, you're right, was too strong a
No,
word. I
and
apologize.
also we need to be cognizant of the thousands of people who we haven't heard from as well. So it's just, I just wanted to clarify that. It has not been an overwhelming. We received all kinds of emails regarding our proposed superintendent's budget. Not all of them are for, not all of them are against, but I just wanted to clarify that as a secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, Mr. Lippman, do you have anything? He entered the waiting room. He's coming back and I just see it says. Okay. Now, I know that's not his hand, so I'm going to wait. I learned that. Mr. Lippman, would you like to say something?
I would just say that I support the superintendent's budget. The superintendent characterized it as a conservative budget that adds about $400,000 out of $125 million in net new discretionary investment in our students' education. I think if we want to be known as a town that's disinvesting from our public education, then, a 2% increase is a good way to signal that. I am totally opposed to it. And I think we owe it to vote on the superintendent's budget, up or down.
Thank you, Mr. Lippman. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a none. You have a motion to amend. First, the motion to amend the previous motion.
Correct.
Do we have a second to support the amendment? Amendment. Second. All those in favor of accepting the motion to amend the budget?
Is there a discussion for that?
Oh, so Rachel was second. Yeah, she did say second. Okay, can you say the motion? We are first amending the motion. Yeah.
I make a motion to amend the amendments and add a motion. Add,
I can do it.
Yeah.
Please allow
Thank you.
me.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't read
move-
Robert's rules yet.
No, he's got it written.
It's a lot to ask for your
Yes,
first
yes,
meeting in the room.
He
so
actually
I
wrote it
completely
down. He
understand.
did write it down.
I move to amend the superintendent's budget request to lower the increase to 2%
Thank you.
at the appropriate dollar amount, which I don't have in front of me.
Thank you.
Is there a second to this motion?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approve,
Do we not have a discussion?
you want to say comment? Of course you can.
I just figured we would.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, I just want to discuss his
2%?
Yes, I want to discuss it. I think that while I do think that we should work in tandem with the Board of Finance's guidelines, I think first of all, we're all for an increase, I think. So I think using the word cut and reduction is actually not what's happening here, because Mr. Martiri is asking for a 2% increase. So we're all, I believe, in support of an increase. I think where we are discussing is what that appropriate increase is. I do believe that 2% is not enough. I think it's too drastic. I think we have to be cognizant of the basics. So, and by basic, salaries and all of that, salaries and benefits and things like that. And we do want to see growth. So I think we should find a way somewhere in between, 2 and 4.62. So I just wanted to make that statement.
So
Thanks.
can we take a vote, or do you want to discuss this?
If I could just add another comment?
Sure.
Sure. The 2%, though, is in the context of making structural changes going forward. It's not in the context of doing 2% now and then, okay, let's think about next budget cycle, what it's going to wind up being. It's to your point, and some of the things that you've already kicked off. How are we going to fundamentally change? What's the strategic plan? And I just can't see without linking the budget to that, going with a 4.62% increase. So that's the context of my 2%. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Graff, who's been waiting?
Yeah, thank you. Just thinking through the proposed 2% increase, gives me some concern because, we've heard from Dr. De Silva that our core is a substantially higher number than that, which, as we know, does not align with the guidance from Board of Finance. And I heard at many of our meetings, multiple of our members discuss the importance of keeping our values of our district at its heart. And that is our core teachers and all of our support staff. And from very much dissecting but not auditing the budget, I feel extremely confident from my perspective that doing such a drastic change from the original proposal significantly impacts our students and our culture of our teachers, which very much concerns me, and I do not support.
Yes, Ms. Marino, or we can take a vote.
Can I just ask clarifying questions? All right, number one, the core and rollover, like, are we using those interchangeably? Because I know we had some conversation about not calling it a core, calling it a rollover. And everything that was in the core, is it a true rollover, or is there other stuff in there? Just clarifying, because.
Yeah, so I don't remember, it's okay. I don't remember any discussion about not using the words interchangeably because they're just different, meaning they're just different words for describing it differently. That rollover amount does not have anything new in the budget. It is keeping the programs as is.
Okay.
But it is important to remember that that increase above the 3.44% is not, there are legal requirements within there.
Yes.
And so when we looked at all of these numbers, both on February 9th and tonight, but most importantly, I think on February 9th, I disaggregated that from the numbers. So what you were left with, and which ultimately got to this 750, 500, was really about what are compliance, what are we expected to do?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you have no choice around that, and then it will impact the core, because the core is built into that 3.44.
Okay, got it. And then the other question I had for you is, and you mentioned this, and you brought this up too, Rob, is, we can't really sustain, these budgets. So in your mind, as our superintendent, you're creating these budgets, what do you see our future looking like? In your mind, how are we going to adopt these big, proposals that you come to us with? What changes do you think our district needs to make? I think all of us have some ideas, but I'd like to hear from you what you think those changes should be.
So two things I want to just clarify. I said 3.44, and I always have to go back to that slide, is 3.47%.
Yeah, I thought so.
3.23%, that graphic, 3.23%. So when you're asking me about what has to change, I think that's a really loaded question in a meeting right now. But what I'd say, and it's okay, because so I would say two things. I want to echo what Ms. Graff just said about what that kind of reduction to the superintendent's proposed budget, I know it's an increase, but a reduction to the superintendent's proposed budget does to the school system. You're devastating it.
Right.
Stop, point blank. That said, do I agree with what was shared tonight with many of our board members? Sustainability is a big deal. You're going to need to look at your facilities. You're going to need to look at programs. You're going to need to look at your master plan that over time is going to give this board, future boards, future superintendents, future town boards, a roadmap into making some decisions that are going to be hard decisions for sometimes the community to hear. That said, if you're planful and you create a strategic plan that says, okay, this is what the next 1 to 5 years are going to look like, but here's 6 to 10, and here's a plan that the community needs to be aware that is coming, as a for example. That changes the culture and shift of like, oh my gosh, I'm being devastated next week, right? But that can't come only from me. And that can't only come from me and you and this side of the table. It has to come from a cohesive agreement that you have a community that has many facilities And investments have to happen, and that's really what I hoped to communicate well tonight. Yes, I recognize that the socioeconomic status of, I worked in Darien, I worked in Westport, I've worked in these communities, I'm partners with them, that we may be different. I'm not suggesting that we're not. In affordability, I'll leave that for the towns to share. But what I can say, programmatically, we're different also. And we've had to inch our way up. And one of the reasons I believe that people come to this community is because of our schools. And I think our schools, respectfully, have gotten better and better because of strategic, smart investments and commitments that have happened over time. And yes, there's going to need to be good heads together to think about future years, especially if what we're saying is, a 4.62 is not sustainable, but yet you want to continue to grow your schools. You're going to have to figure this out, and and when I say you, it's with me and my colleagues as well, not alone, but it's going to need to be a collective, because otherwise I think you're going to feel that push from the community. So it's far bigger than tonight.
Thank you, because that was really honest, and I've been here only since, last year, and that was probably the best answer I've heard on the board for a while, and honest, you know what I mean? And that's really the truth of it all. So thank you.
Okay, now we have a motion. Okay, there's a motion, there's amendment, sorry, there's an amendment, and there's a second to that amendment. All those in favor of approving that amendment, please raise your hand. The motion is not carried. Mr. Siegel, would you like to propose an amendment to the original motion, or should we vote on the original? Sorry, I know he had concerns. Go ahead.
Do you want to, I have one.
Mike.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, please, if you have one in mind.
You, okay. Okay,
I would like to make a motion to amend the original motion of accepting the superintendent's proposed budget. I'd like to amend it to a 4% increase.
okay. Do we have a second?
No? Oh, man.
No.
All
Okay,
right.
the motion does not carry. All right,
Thank you.
that's okay. Is there any other amendments to the original motion? At this point, I'm just, okay. Mr. Siegel, would you like to make an amendment? Ms. Moore made hers. Mr. Martiri made his. Okay,
So I'd like to make a motion to amend to a growth rate of 4.3%.
okay, thank you. I don't know what that is in dollar amount, but
Sorry.
I'm looking at Ms. Brown, but that's okay. All right, there's an amendment. Is there anyone who's willing, or anybody who wants to second that amendment to the 4.3?
Sorry, I'm going to need the quick math on that before
Yeah.
I know whether or not I can vote on it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm
We're
waiting
taking
on-
care of that right now.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jill.
It's $124,947,228.
Can you repeat that
Say
one more
that again
time?
slowly.
$124,947,228. I'll tell you the increase in a second. That's an increase of $5,151,228.
So the reduction in the superintendent's budget would be, I think, is that about $380,000, or is my fast math in my head wrong?
Jill, you said 124 million?
124.
228?
Yep. 377,000.
How much?
Correct.
377,572.
I need my 10 key. I'm not going fast enough.
5 million?
I'll round
It
something
is,
in there to make this
377.
simple for us.
Okay,
377,
377,572.
572.
Yeah, that's an increase of 5?
No, that would be the reduction to
That
the
will be the
current
reduction,
proposed.
but so the increase would be 5 something, right?
The increase would be 4.3 was Mr. Siegel's.
I'm not getting 4.3 off of that, Jill, I'm sorry. I'm getting 4.22.
I'm getting it as well.
You're getting 4.3?
Taking our original,
119,885,958 core budget?
taking our original 119,796, multiplying by 1.0.
Is 119,796?
119,796
Okay.
times 1.043.
Okay, thank you.
Good quiz.
Good.
All right. Does that help, Ms. Rice? You have a number? Okay, all right. No, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Yes, any discussion?
Yes. I would like to know what that motion would entail. Would we be, we would just leave it to the superintendent to make that work? No, I'm saying in terms of line items and things like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My understanding in that situation, if we pass that motion,
Yeah.
we would send it to the Board of Select Persons for a non-binding recommendation. They would in then turn send it to the Board of Finance. Should they accept that motion, should they accept that number,
Yeah.
it would come back to the Board of Education, and then the Board of Education, it would be our budget. We would request Dr. De Silva to give us the priorities
yes.
and options by
Okay.
which we would be able to hit that number.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful, Mr. Paradiso. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Marino, sorry, you raised your hand.
Yeah, can I make another motion?
Did we, so where are we?
Where we had a,
4.3?
we have a 4.3, we had a second, right? Ms. Rice second. So, we amended the 4.6 to a 4.3. This is to amend that. So we have a second, we have a discussion. All those in favor of approving the 4.3 as the Board of Education's fiscal year
Can I
27
ask a
budget?
clarifying question?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just a clarifying question. If the board is getting ready to vote on that 4.3, why have they not voted on the original proposed
Because
budget
we are
yet?
amended the budget.
Could-
We're
okay,
amending
s-
the motion, the first, we keep amending, and you can amend if you, so we have a motion to amend, and somebody seconds that motion, so that motion
It
it
supersedes
supersedes the
the-
original motion,
If it passes.
if it passes. Because Mr. Martiri made it and nobody seconded the motion, so that motion did not carry through, so we did not even go through that.
Okay.
That's,
Well, someone second, no one second mine, but someone second.
Right.
oh, they did second, you're right.
Just to.
No, you're right, I
just failed.
forgot, yeah, it just failed,
okay.
but it failed because nobody was in favor. Okay, sorry. All right, now we're gonna go back to, we're at 4.3. There was a second. All those in favor of accepting the 4.3, please raise your hand. Ms. Rice, thank you. Mr. Siegel. Mr. Lippman?
No.
No? Okay, that was 2 in favor, am I right? And 2 in favor and 7 opposed. All right. All right, we're going
may I
back to.
comment?
Yes.
Well, this has been an interesting evening. First of all, I would genuinely and sincerely like to thank all of the members of the administration and Dr. De Silva, who contributed so much of their time and effort and blood and sweat and tears into coming up with these numbers. I know it's not easy, and I know if you had your way, you'd ask for even more. I get that. And you had to do all of that on top of your regular day job, too. So thank you very much for all of your effort.
Thank you.
I will say that I intend to support the superintendent's proposed budget this evening as the first step in what will be a broader budget process. I trust that the programmatic growth that is recommended by the superintendent and her team reflects real needs in our district, and I support that direction, and I support that work. At the same time, I agree with a lot of the other people at this table who have said that growth at this level is not sustainable year after year for this town. We have been given clear directional guidance by our neighbors on the Board of Finance regarding the level of growth that can be the town can reasonably absorb. There is a meaningful gap, and it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars between what the Board of Finance had directed us and what the superintendent has recommended to us. I look forward to meeting with the Board of Finance in March to work together to close that gap in a way that serves the entire community. So in that sense, I'm voting to advance us to the next step. Whatever the outcome of the Board of Finance's deliberations, my priority, my North Star in all of this will be to ensure that our current classroom teachers and student-facing services are protected and sustained to the greatest level possible. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, yes.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments, Mr. Paradiso. I think they're very powerful and very important. The one place that I do respectfully disagree is I think that we, as a Board of Education, have a responsibility at this table to absolutely support our students the best way possible. But we also need to, we represent the community, and we need to be respectful of another elected board that is responsible for the financial health of this town. And I think we owe them that respect. And I don't think, I think that it's our job as elected officials to represent the entire community. And not necessarily just, you know, send it to the next level. So I guess that's just how I feel. You know, that, which is why I made the motion for 4.0 increase. I'm looking for a compromise that I think the town will have an appetite for. We all have history here. I've lived here for 20 years. My own child has obviously, you know, gone through the schools K through 12, and we all benefit. And I'm so grateful for everything that this team has done. Our teachers, our administrators. I'm 100% grateful for that. I'm also cognizant of the appetite in the town, and I think we want a budget that the town is going to support. I've worked in districts where budgets have not passed. And I can tell you it is a very, very difficult drink of water. I don't know why I said that, but it's a very difficult pill to swallow. It really is. So I think we owe the community, you know, a willingness to meet the Board of Finance and in a good faith way. Thank you.
Okay, can I say something? Oh, sorry, Mr. Lippman.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Mr. Paradiso's comments. The role of the Board of Education and the role of the Board of Finance are distinct and separate. The superintendent has come to us with a budget proposal that is fiscally conservative and that is responsible and that deserves an up or down vote. I'm a little confused as to why we're making amendments before we know whether the proposed budget is going to pass or fail. I think we should vote on what the team has put together in their judgment as the needed investments to continue to keep this school system strong. I think that we are, you know, to the detriment of this community's long-term health, putting kind of arbitrary numbers on the table, 2%, 3%, 4%, that have no relationship to the programmatic investments, to the investments in teachers and their benefits, and to, as someone at this table has commented tonight, to an investment in our town that reflects the property values for each and every member of this town. If we take the decision tonight to promote the status quo or to pare back our investment in our schools, what kind of signal does that send to the families who've chosen this community for the education of their children, or to people that are considering moving and investing in this town versus other towns that are making these investments, that are investing in new buildings, new state-of-the-art buildings, new programming, stretching, aspiring to be excellent, aspiring to hire the best, aspiring to keep the best. I think a proposal to at 2%, we just heard from our superintendent, would mean devastating this district. How that's even part of the conversation tonight before we've given an up or down vote to the budget is confusing to me. So I really suggest everyone should take a stand. Yes or no? Do you support the superintendent's proposed budget? If it goes down, then we can consider alternatives. But I don't know why we're negotiating against ourselves preemptively. The Board of Finance is almost certain to ask us for cuts, as Mr. Paradiso has observed. So why start negotiating against ourselves and preemptively cutting a budget that our superintendent says we need to support our students and teachers?
Thank you, Mr. Lippman. I'm just going to say that I personally believe, and I want to say this, every board member has a voice and a value, and I don't think we should make value judgments on what proposals are. The fact is, each board member is allowed to bring a proposal forward. There was no second, it did not carry forward, the motion is canceled. So I just want to recognize these are hard discussions, as seen at this table even today. We are all struggling with the responsibility on us. We're very cognizant of the role of the Board of Education with the partnership with the Board of Select People and the Board of Finance here, and the responsibility we carry. So I appreciate your comments, but I also want to acknowledge that each board member has a right to come from their own lens, which I think I started in the beginning to say we all come at from a different lens of perspective of what we believe is an acceptable number. Yes, and now I just want to go back to the vote because we have a motion and we have a second.
Just one comment, and I want to say this not necessarily for everyone at this table, but really more for the community and anybody who might be watching it. You know, sometimes we use strong language to describe consequences that are unknown. I feel like every day I hear someone say it's a time of great uncertainty. Every time is uncertain. There's always uncertainty, and if we're going to do our job, we have to lead from a place of calm, professional governance. And I don't want anyone listening to this to think that anybody wants to devastate anything. Nobody wants to hurt anybody. We're all in this together. We're all neighbors. We all want to find the solution that works for the entire community. So, and everyone can voice their opinion and say what they want. But I think it's important because I don't want people listening to this think that it's like this like binary option between devastation or acceptance. That's not what this is at the end of the day. This is about this group of people making a recommendation and then committing to do the work with our neighbors on the other municipal boards. So I just wanted to say that because I don't want the headline to be devastation, because I don't think that's the appropriate headline for this exercise. And anybody can say what they want. I'm not trying to tone police anybody, but that's just my feeling.
No, but it's true. But because we all come from, I just said it even in the beginning, I think to bring it to circle back, we all come in from our own lens, right? We all believe. I do want to say that I appreciate the strategic plan part. I think that is something that has come up multiple times by other members too. And I'm so excited that the meeting tomorrow will be the first, we're starting the strategic plan. So I think we are excited, I think, as a community is looking to us, and I think that'll be very important as we go through the budget discussions. I also want to remind everybody watching or listening, including our board, these are hard decisions. You can even see it today. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what the Board of Finance is going to come back with a binding recommendation. And to echo what Mr. Paradiso say, the Board of Select People give us a non-binding recommendation. We can still discuss it at the board and think if that is something we want to take into consideration. And when the Board of Finance make a binding recommendation, that is something we have to follow through. So just if that is a reduction, it is a reduction. I don't think they ever add to the budget, but hey, you never know. But I'm just saying that is something that the board will have to take. All right, now, and again, I think each board member has a value to add in each motion. I appreciate everybody's point of view. I think we all have to come from that. And I think I want to say there are parents in us who cannot support X amount. There are parents who want more. That is the reality of us. And I said it in the beginning. We represent 4,500 kids who come from different values, different perspectives, different financial backgrounds. So each value, each member's voice is important. So thank you for that. Mr. Siegel?
Yeah, and I appreciate the comments from Mr. Paradiso, and agree with you. Obviously, we don't want to signal anything around devastation. I think that the angle I'm coming from here is one of optimization,
Yes.
and really, and I hear you when we're talking about a modification to the original budget of what amounts to just under $400,000. You say, is that really getting us to the target that was set from Board of Finance? I appreciate it's not, but I also think this was a very thoughtful budget. And that's where, if I'm talking about smarts, is because I think the additions and the work that's gone into what is both rollover and new investment areas are things that absolutely we pay less to do it now than down the road. And it is stuff that give us upside. in a way that makes sense to do it now and to create the urgency around it. I do, while I still believe there is, again, like not to pick on world language, but I think that kind of as one key example on, again, I would love to see an investment in the area. I would love to see more dual fluency appreciation of cultures internationally. I think it's that going back to what we've heard at this table in the past around kind of like real measurable outcomes. And that just happens to be one area where I'm not necessarily fully convinced. But I do think that this is a very thoughtful budget. And to Mr. Baradizo's point of, let's advance this. I do want to support the budget as it stands from the original, from the proposed superintendent. I just want to make sure we're continuing to think about investing smart,
Sure.
Not just investing more, holding ourselves accountable to thinking about where we can be creative with operating expenses. I'm really looking forward to the strategic planning tomorrow to think about the things that we're not necessarily discussing today. When we're not talking about stuff like nutrition, I think that the community still owes, we owe the community answer on our teachers, getting into some of these things where dollars can be shifted around. But the reality is we have a budget in front of us. It was thoughtfully put together. I am thinking about the edges, but I think that's because I want to make sure we are being disciplined as a board.
Absolutely. And I know I haven't even shared this, but I think even as wants the strategic, but we can also have, when we have a board retreat in June, we can also have a board strategic plan, right? We haven't had these discussions, but that's long in June. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of approving, can you read the motion again, Ms. Moore, please?
Sure. I move that the Board of Education adopt the superintendent's 2026-27 Ridgefield Public Schools operating budget totaling $125,324,800, a 4.62% increase over the current budget.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
So moved.
Mr. Paradiso, all those in favor of approving the budget as stated by Ms. Moore? Mr. Lippman?
Yes.
So Mr. Lippman's yes, Ms. Rice is yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. All those opposed? 3. Motion carries.